Hello, everyone, and welcome to the March Florida Native Plant Society Lunch and Learn. I'm very pleased to have a bunch of conservation rock stars on right now, but we're going to open with John Benton. He's on your screen in the orange shirt in the lower left, because he is the chair of the FNPS Conservation Committee. Take it away, John.
Hello, everyone. We have a lot of good conservation news and a lot of things that are happening, so I'm excited to share those things. The first thing is we just had the closing of our 2024 Conservation Grant Awards, and we had two very good projects that we debated among. The other projects were good as well, but they weren't necessarily conservation projects. So the one that we awarded and the board approved was to the Point Washington State Forest, where they will have some people go into wetlands that don't burn very well, and they will remove some woody and viney species that are impinging on some listed plants that we care about. And they've been doing this type of work for a long time. We have experienced crews. It was just a top-notch project to fund, and we were happy to fund it. There is another project in South Florida that we are trying to find the money to fund. So we may have more on that later. So that was good news. We're not able to get any applicants for the Dan Austin Ethnobotany Award. And this is the second year that we have not had any applications. So we may need to revisit that particular award and see how we can make it more inclusive or a broader audience or something to further that type of work. On our past awards, this week I had the good fortune to accompany one of my committee members, Neil Halstead, as he surveyed Lake Griffin State Park, which we awarded they were doing some Waria conservation work, really trying to control Natal grass. But what Neil was after was sand skinks, which inhabit the same things. So we were able to turn over some boards and catch some sand skinks, and they're there, and we saw some little warias sprouting up in the area. So yes, I feel really good about what the award that we made last year. And the year before that was a Dicerandra project on the Marjorie Carr Greenway that went very well. And we will get some good information back from the graduate student who was involved with that, Rochelle Deep. And I hope we can get her for our annual conference because it will be an amazing presentation on what pollinates Dicerandra, and different. So there are some good things to be said there. So I'm really happy with our conservation grant program, and maybe we can expand it. The other thing that is good is I visited with Linda and Athena. We visited our FNPS Waria conservation land in Marion County, and there's Waria present. There are sand skinks likely present. And we are working with the Putnam Land Conservancy to enhance the areas that we have. Putnam also has some other areas in the vicinity that they may need some help with, and we could have a nice alliance between FNPS members that we contribute to some work days to improve the habitat in these small plots for Waria. So I'm looking forward to collaborating with Beautyberry, Big Scrub, the villages, maybe the Alachua partnership to have some work days. And because Putnam land is stretched pretty thin, they can't necessarily do that, but they can certainly direct willing hands, and we can make a difference on some of these small plots. So that's another exciting development. The other thing is our LMR review project is going very well. Lily is now the point person for assigning people to attend these LMRs and then getting back the information back in forms that we can use it and make good use of for plant purposes. So that's going pretty well. And we look forward to, we're about halfway through the year, maybe a little bit halfway through our review year. And we're assembling those types of data for use. The final thing that we're involved with, you'll hear a bit more about later, is our committee has and it's taking a PowerPoint that Juliet and Jackie did on plant rescues, and we've revamped it and updated it. So it's in the final stages of review. So we hope to extend plant rescues to other and give other chapters resources on how to do these rescues. And there is even a little bit of funding for such things. We can buy pots. We can have, if you need to rent a vehicle, a mule or something to schlep plants around, we can do that. So we're trying to facilitate and extend these great programs to the broader FNPS community. That's all I have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John. All right, so the next thing I have is just a quick overview of the legislative session, and then just some conservation news, and then we'll hop right into our great local chapter folks. All right, so the legislative session ended on March 8th, and fortunately, the worst of the environmental bills were defeated, although it's still a mixed bag, like pretty substantially mixed bag. And what you need to know is that the bills are headed to the governor's desk now. So even though we really worked hard, thank you everyone so much for responding to our action alerts. I didn't get to the thank you emails for the last round of action alerts, but I do receive them, and I really appreciate everyone who hops in there and takes their time to call or email senators. I know it's, and representatives, because I know it's a lot of work. But now we have this lull before the governor starts to sign bills. And so we're going to try and get ahead of that for some of the bills that we don't like. And as you see, these action alerts for governor vetoes here. So please keep an eye out on your inbox. And I will, after I finish presenting, I will drop a link in the chat for the action alert email sign up, which is a Google form. And now, just because you haven't gotten a lot of action alert emails, especially recently, it doesn't mean you're not on the list. I mean, if you have never gotten any, you should definitely re-sign up. You can re-sign up. I just look at your name again and I go, wow, they're very enthusiastic. Good job. Thanks, guys. So there's no harm, no foul. If you want to re-sign up for the list, nothing bad happens. I just look at you again. So in other news, we've had a little bit of rumbles on the local front with conservation and policy activity. Conservation Collier funding. I was notified about this by a member who kind of keeps in touch with stuff in the Naples area. They don't live there. And they emailed me and said, hey, are the locals working on this? Because locals don't always, let me know, like, hey, we're doing something. They don't have to. And so they don't always. And so in this case, I, emailed the local chapter leaders for Naples chapter, and they gave me the whole lowdown. It turns out like a lot of the Tropical Audubon and our Naples chapter were already involved because the commissioners took the Conservation Collier funding and they just took it and used it for something else, and everybody got really mad. And so the local heat resulted in the money is going to be returned to the Conservation Collier, and there were ordinances revised to protect it. So great job, Naples chapter and everyone else in Southwest Florida. The Everglades to Gulf Conservation Area is the newest unit in the National Wildlife Refuge System. And so this is something that was expanded under the Obama administration, but there's like over 400 of these nationwide. And they do include a mix of fee simple, which is like, hey, it's a public park, you can go visit it, they own all the layers of land conservation, to just conservation easements purchases, where the state holds the conservation easement and, is supposed to protect it from development. So that was recently put in place. There was a big, people gave speeches, and it was big over. The Wakulla gas station was defeated, and our local chapters were involved in that. Great work, really great job, you guys. That was going to be right over some really sensitive karst geology, and so this is really solid. There was no fertilizer preemption this legislative session. That's something that Jean was worried about quite a bit. And so we attended a Sierra Club-led press conference in Central Florida to preempt the preemption. And, no bills were brought up. But of course, the end of the legislative session is absolute chaos. You can just put a little line item in the budget, and with no committee hearings, no public input, bam, sign into law. It is wild. It's like the Wild West out here. And so we were concerned, we and other environmental organizations were very concerned that might happen, since there was a fertilizer preemption in this last session. So that didn't happen. And then there was a big win in Dade County, where the South Dade Logistics and Technology District development was denied, and that was outside of the urban growth boundary. So great work for everyone on that. Okay, and then now we're going to have Carly Batts, the president of the Martin County chapter, and the staff horticulturalist for the Martin County Board of County Commissioners, present on her chapter's activities. And let me pull up the slideshow.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for the introduction, Valerie, and for having me on. Again, my name is Carly Batts. I'm the president of the Martin County chapter. I love what I do, and I'm excited to be here today with all of you to share what the Martin County chapter has done this season for conservation. And Valerie's going to be helping me out showing my slides. So next slide, please. Okay, so essentially, we have a summer planning meeting every year, and that dictates basically the direction that we are traveling for that season. And the main theme that we decided to focus on was community. And that meant both plant communities and our societal community. One of the things we've noticed is Martin County has a large amount of environmental nonprofits. And so we essentially all have the same mission, but coming at it from a different angle. And there have been some instances where people didn't want to work together for whatever reason. And we decided we wanted to try and overcome that, extend that olive branch and work together for conservation. So next slide, please. So to me, there are many ways to accomplish conservation work. And the three categories that our chapter decided they wanted to work on was through impact projects. So think plants in the ground, professional development or continuing ed for those in the field, like environmental biologists, et cetera, and then lastly through seed grants, because we all know that there is not enough product in the market for native plants. Next slide. And so here is an example of an impact project we did this year. This was at the Environmental Studies Center in Martin County, Jensen Beach, Florida. They had or still do have a 300-foot unarmored shoreline. And so that was one of the largest shorelines that was unarmored in our county, that's continuous. And if you see in the left slide there, that was an example of what the shoreline was looking like, which had a lot of exotics, a lot of non-native house plants, like Sansevieria there. And so we decided we would partner with the school board, the River Kids, Indian River Keeper, Earth Savers Club, the Teachers Union, the City of Ocean Breeze, and Sea Grant. And we worked with each group using what that group had to offer best. So For instance, the city of Ocean Breeze, they're the neighboring property, and they had the funding available to help us remove the exotics from the shoreline. You'll see there that painted sign. The River Kids, we had a painting party with pizza one day at the site, and they all painted these absolutely adorable signs for us to put along the walkway. It's a very trafficked area near our downtown. And so it was a great opportunity to spread the message that we had to share. We also had QR codes posted up on either ends of the project so that people could have more of a informational bit and sign up to be volunteers. You'll see there on the right is a picture from that morning. We had slated for the project to take 3 hours to plant the 170 plants, which Sea Grant had helped us pick out. Some did include threatened species, and because we had 70 plus volunteers show up, we were done in less than 45 minutes. So that was an amazing impact project, and it's doing wonderfully. And there's been a lot of community pride now surrounding that area. Okay, next slide, please. So then when it came to professional development, something our chapter recognized was that during the development review process within our county, there seemed like there was a lot of threatened and endangered species of plants that were being missed during that process. And so we asked our local Treasure Coast chapter of environmental professionals if they would be interested in partnering for some continuing ed on the topic of threatened and endangered native plants. And they graciously accepted that invitation, and we hosted it at Honey Company and Cafe in Stewart. And they are a great partner too, because they're a business that is extremely supportive of our mission. They themselves are beekeepers. That photo on the left, the purple boxes, those are recycled bee boxes that they have planted native wildflowers in at the entrance to their shop. And essentially, though, during our time with those environmental professionals who are out in the field doing that work for developers, we talked to them about how to use the plant atlas to see if things were vouchered. We also talked to them about using iNaturalist if they're working with like a public entity where people might have, done records of a plant that would be threatened or endangered. Next slide, please. Okay, so then with the seed grant aspect of it. So like I said earlier, there's never enough product available. And during our December gathering, which is essentially our holiday party for our chapter, we decided to ask members to bring in seeds and plants to donate to the local high school's horticulture program. And so that center photo is them posting a photo of their necklace pod seedlings sprouting. And so that was super exciting for us to see. On the right there is myself with a student during an FNGLA exam. And so for those of you who are not familiar with FNGLA, it is a organization that works to certify landscaping professionals so that we are all working from best management practices. And so this was a great opportunity to have this next generation of landscapers become more familiar and knowledgeable on native plants. Next slide, please. So to wrap it all up, this year we've been very busy. We've partnered with 16 different organizations to make these and many other projects happen, and we're very proud of that, and we are looking forward to what next year might bring us. But thank you all for listening. If you have any questions about how we accomplish some of these projects, feel free to reach out.
Fabulous work. Thank you so much, Carly. You guys just, I mean, you're such a powerhouse, and then your chapter is just doing such great work. Okay, so.
Agreed. Very proud.
Yes. Okay, so next up we have Amy Morie, landscape architect, and she's with the Ixia chapter, and I also have her presentation.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me today. I'm actually fairly new to the conservation group with Florida Native Plant Society, and I've kind of moved to the edge of Ixia, so I'm kind of reporting around the edges today, but they do send out a lot of great, exciting information. I really love the way they keep their members connected, especially to all of the conservation issues. So the chapter's, coming up on 20 years in just a couple of years here. They're really busy all of the time. They serve a pretty big, growing multi-county area. Duval has always been pretty big, and now they're kind of expanding out to their edges. And Clay and Nassau and St. John's have also kind of exploded in growth. So there's really a need for good conservation and native plant education in these areas. Chapter has some great folks, President Jody Willis, the chapter conservation director, who also puts out their newsletter every month, Chad Scott, and Walter Bryan, who is secretary is kind of an understatement. He also manages the Facebook and newsletter and keeps everything connected with the chapter. So they do have some regular education meetings that I'll just mention in brief. They, just great educational programs. A lot of wonderful field trips, and they've got a lot of great members for ID in the field. You get to see a lot of exciting species. And their invasive plant removals and rescues are really good. They'll see a couple of those sites coming up on the next slide. They're doing a lot of outreach activities. In fact, this month they have something every month, including not this month quite yet, but in April, they'll be having something every weekend. And April 13th will be their native plant sale. So that's a great way to kind of bring education and the plants to the community. Then finally, they provide grants to individuals and organizations so that research and planting can expand in the community. And one of those projects that's been ongoing is Native Park, which is an agreement with the city of Jacksonville. Okay, I've also put their Facebook and their chapter page at the bottom there. And next slide. Okay, so the conservation newsletter is something that's published every month. It's really, really insightful because it will drill down into kind of the local issues as well as those state, national, and even global issues that are impacting conservation and native plants. So you can really find out a wide range of things to get involved with, both in your community and at a larger level. And it's just been a really, next slide. All right, so invasive species management, these are some of the ongoing invasive removal projects that the chapter's been working with. So Boone Park, they've been working to remove a number of exotic, non-native invasives, primrose willow, golden rain tree, coral ardesia, camphor tree, some of the really aggressive ones out there they've been dealing with. They've been partnering with others, just removing those natives, but replanting those areas so that removing the non-natives and replanting the areas so that those natives can take hold. So you see some members working on that removal and some of the tree girdling that's being done to slowly take out some of those camphor trees. Same kind of project at the Jacksonville Arboretum. So they're really trying to work on some of those aggressive non-natives that were very popular in the day when a lot of these parks and gardens were started. The Native Park is another project they work on. I don't have pictures on that one, sorry, but that one is managed with the city of Jacksonville and started as an invasive species removal site. I do encourage you to go to their website and look at it. And they replanted it with natives. So when they started working with the site in 2011, there were 37 native species there, and now the chapter has added over 130 more to that garden. So it's a very vibrant workspace where the community can come together and keep it maintained and learn about native plants in the process. Okay, and final, this will be my last slide. This is kind of the highlight, I think, of the chapter. They made a grant to University of North Florida Institute of Environmental Research and Education. And this is to help restore native habitat of Sardinia minor, Drosera species, and other carnivorous species in Sawmill Slough. So this slough is a conservation site for the UNF campus. It's been there for quite some time. They do a lot of educational programming there, but this will help them to kind of revitalize some of those areas that need it. So this photo was from November. Oh, and I see I made a typo here. The students and faculty actually installed more plants in March of this year. So an ongoing process that I'm really, really happy that our chapter is supporting. Thank you.
Wow, that is just, yeah, Ixia is so amazing. And they just do so much. And that like long-standing partnership with the city of Jacksonville and Native Park. I mean, if you look up parks to go in Jacksonville, Native Park 1 and 2, they come right up. It's like people are just being exposed to native plants all the time that way. Right, and so now I have Merelee, you're back. You look
Okay.
ready to go. Okay, all right. Merelee Atkinson, PhD, is with Coccoloba Chapter, and she'll be presenting on the River Oaks project. And I just have to pull it up.
Okay. I don't see it. Is that?
No, I haven't showed it to you yet.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to say Marlene Rodak had planned to present this. She had a conflict, unfortunately, but she has been the driving force behind the River Oaks Preserve project. And so we wouldn't be here without her. Okay, so this is really a story about a long-term relationship and fairly large scale with a municipality, the village of Estero. It's a small municipality, and they work on a government light way. They often outsource services that might otherwise be accomplished by employees. And that's part of the reason we were given so much authority to manage this property. And we certainly encourage other chapters to look into municipal partnerships. So this photo shows the entrance to the preserve, and one of our Florida Gulf Coast University volunteers is shown there, and a couple others in the smaller photos. For now, we're open from 9 to 1 on Sundays and Tuesdays. As we acquire more volunteers, we'll be increasing the hours of operation. You can go on to the next slide. This shows an aerial view of the property. To the left, there's a long easement of about 2 acres. And our nursery, well, the entrance is on the far left of the easement. Our native plant nursery is about 1/3 of the way up. And we've started demonstration gardens in that area. And then the large rectangle is the main part of the preserve. It's about 10 acres. And if you see the blue line about 1/3 of the way over, that's the origin area for the Estero River. It's quite narrow in this site, but it divides the area into sort of 2 sections, which are somewhat different, because on the far right is an area that is dominated by old slash pines and very old saw palmettos. And we've seen a number of endangered plant species in that area. And to the left, we have an area that was once had a home, a residence. It was much more disturbed by human activities. And that area is, we do see some pines and palmettos, but a lot of live oaks. And also that side of the river has a low-lying area that's often flooded. And so the habitat's a bit different there. Both of these areas, as well as the easement, are home to about 35 or so gopher tortoises. We also have eastern cottontail rabbits. We have a variety of birds and at least one bobcat. And we hope with our planting efforts to achieve a lot more wildlife in this area. So let's see. Yeah, we can go back. So what we've accomplished so far, we're in the very early stages of this project. Estero purchased the 10-acre section in spring of 2022 for $1.2 million. They already owned the easement area. Marlene and I, and Marlene initiated all these contacts, but we were in talks with the leadership of Estero in the spring of 22. Our memorandum of understanding was negotiated, and I'm proud to say we're able to convince Estero to make this into an all-native, exclusively native preserve. And to let us manage the property. And of course, we're an all-volunteer organization. The first chore was to eliminate exotics, especially the area west or to the left of the river was totally overrun with exotics. We had earleaf acacia, carrotwood, Caesar weed, rosary pea, and you may have noticed from the aerial that the area had a dense canopy. So after the exotics treatment, that canopy was opened, especially on the left side. Right of the river, to the right of the river, there were not as many exotics. So our goal there is mainly to maintain that all native situation, and the exotics keep sprouting, so we have to manage that. But basically, we're going to leave the area as is. On the left, so much area was opened by removal of exotics that we have a lot of planting to do, but this gives us an opportunity to introduce a lot of native plants that visitors will be able to learn about and hopefully ask questions about, and potentially even buy them at our native plant nursery. Marlene actually hired the crew to remove the exotics, and the company was actually owned by an FNPS member, so he was knowledgeable about the situation, and they did a great job. There was no electricity, no water service in the area, so we actually found an old well, activated it, put in a lot of PVC pipe to transport water to some of our high priority planting sites. We built a composting bathroom and introduced some temporary storage. There are plans for permanent buildings, and I'll get into that shortly. We opened our native plant nursery, and we haven't held a great deal of events so far because we've just been so busy just getting this place started. But we have had a few garden clubs, including a group from the Master Gardening program. We've given tours to HOA committees, and Audubon has come for a hike. And let's see. and we've given a few talks. We've had also a couple of chapter meetings. So we can go on. Hurdles, I won't dwell on this. We did have Hurricane Ian, which gave us a lot of debris to clean up. It was very difficult and even catastrophic for a few of our members who lost their homes or had to go out of their homes for many months. But for us, it was just a lot of debris to clean up. Last year was sort of the year that the rainy season never showed up. It actually did, but it only lasted about 3 weeks. So we had started our planting program and put quite a few plants in the ground. So it was all we could do just to these plants watered so they didn't die on us. So we didn't make a lot of progress during the summer on our planting program. But we're up and running again, and we've had a slightly cooler and slightly wetter winter. So things are in good shape for now. You can go on. Grant-wise, the USDA National Resources Conservation Service met with Marlene, I think in 2022, fairly early in the project. And they were just wowed by the property. It's really beautiful. It has so much potential. And so they said, we don't have anything else like this. And we want you to submit a proposal. So we did. And they actually gave us 2 awards. One was the emergency EQIP. I forget what that stands for exactly, but it has to do with funds to help landowners promote conservation.
It's the Environmental Quality Incentives Program.
Gotcha, thank you.
They say EQIP.
Yeah, and then they also gave us this $9,253 to be used over 5 years for whatever we need it for. So this has been a great help. We do also receive a small stipend from the Village of Estero on a monthly basis to cover our expenses. And of course, they also paid for big expenses such as electricity setup and the invasives removal, which probably ran to about $70,000 or so. But Estero has just, if you can go back just for a moment. Yeah, Estero just got word about a month ago that they're receiving $2.5 million for this area. Some of it may go to another site they have nearby, which is called Estero by the River. But I would say at least half will go to River Oaks Preserve. And so they want to put in full-scale utilities. We don't have potable water, for example, and we're not connected to the sewer system. And then of course they want, and we've wanted this all along too. And we've discussed with them, had some fairly long discussions with them about what we need to do, what we want to do. And so the buildings will include one moderately large building. Nothing's going to be too big because we want to really preserve the natural essence of the property. But one building will include a meeting room, potable water, of course, storage for a lot of our large equipment and other things that we need. It will also include flushing toilets, which would be nice, and So, and then also they're going to build a permanent structure for our retail native plant nursery, and probably a pedestrian bridge to cross the Estero River, which is quite narrow in the preserve, and maybe some shaded areas for visitors to rest, sit and rest, and take in the ambiance. So this was great news. Now we can move on. We have lots of volunteers. We still can use more. A lot of our Coccoloba members are volunteers, and we've also gained a lot of volunteers from the neighborhood. The preserve is open for now from, as I said, from 9 to 1 on Sundays and Tuesdays, and we get visitors, and we give them tours and talk to them about what we're doing, and some of them say, they want to join us, and they have, and those people and our members are incredibly productive. There's so much work to do, so that we really only made a dent at this point, but we've made great progress.
Merelee, we still have Kate and Laura to go, so if you could wrap it up, that would be excellent.
Okay. Anyway, we also have volunteers from the Florida Gulf Coast University. Okay. Next. These are just some photographs of some of the university student volunteers. So you can move on. And these are our partners. We're very big on being inclusive and bringing a lot of neighborhood organizations into projects. And that's it.
Awesome. You guys just do. All right, Kate, are you ready? Oh, you're muted. You're still muted. Come back to us.
Sorry, let me.
There we go.
Oops.
Great.
What happened with that? Hmm. Let me try something else. Because I want to share. There we go. Oh, Oh my goodness, this is making me crazy. Okay, can you see it? Go ahead, and I'm going to see if I can. I'm not sure what's going on.
Hi. Would you like me to jump in?
We have Laura here, a co-leader organizer with the Central Florida Plant Rescue Program, mostly in the Claremont area. And so she has done a lot of work in making sure that rescues happen near weekly. And so she's going to share her insights and feelings about it.
All right. Thanks, Val. I've been so impressed with everybody's presentation so far. It's really exciting to see what's going on out there across the state. My focus as a native plant volunteer has slowly evolved into rescuing plants. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. And let me get my screen up here. Let's see. Okay. And okay. Beginning. Okay. Are we there? We're there. Okay. Okay. So the mission of the society, as many of us know, is to, quote, promote the preservation, conservation, and restoration of the native plants and native plant communities in Florida, end quote. So that means, okay, wait, why is it not going? There we go. So that means that digging up plants, collecting seeds is a part of that. It's the last resort to protect native species that are on property slated for development, which we know is going on all over the state. And before the rescue work begins, all efforts to preserve the land have failed and development is imminent. This is the policy where it has both imminent and assured, which is, legalese for as I said, I have become involved with this aspect of the many ways we can help support the Florida Native Plant Society. And it's in Central Florida, and we have a core group of members from Passion Flower, Tar Flower, and other chapters. And we turned what had been kind of a sporadic volunteer effort into weekly as much as possible. We're regularly removing native plants and their seeds from properties at the northern end of the Lake Wales Ridge and, like Val said, in the Claremont area. And all of these sites were historically home to diverse and endemic plant species that do thrive in these sandhill and scrub ecosystems. So we have an example right here of why we do it. This is a photo I took of this great, gorgeous terrestrial orchid and that we found on a site here in Claremont, and that was then, and this is now. So this is the site where we rescued. We were only able to be there. It ended up less than a year. But this right here is the big reason we do what we do, because everything that was there is obviously gone. So this photo is from about a month ago.
And also, just to point out that one of the reasons why we do the imminent and assured is it's for a good reason, right? It's so that we are not an organization that is like, it's okay that you demolish this habitat as long as we can rescue the plants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's a it's a rough push-pull with this project, with this volunteer effort, because yeah, it's obviously eminent assured. This property went away. Those plants needed to be moved if their genetic diversity was going to continue. And so, as I said, native plants and seeds. We also collect mosses and lichens. We've removed, our little group has removed thousands and thousands of pots of plants we get the landowner permission, proper permits and the approvals and so forth. And we just get out there with our shovels. And we have to choose what we're going to rescue too, as well. We can't get everything. You know, we joke about how we'd like to just go in there and just scrape everything, you know, and just like move the whole thing to a new location, which we can't. So we look at whether they're endangered or if they're, you know, super common, perennial versus annual, which is going to be like, okay, let's get the seeds of the annuals rather than the plants. And then there's survivability success. Not everything does well when it gets uprooted and moved. So we do need to think about that too. We only have so much time at these sites usually. Thinking about plant size. I mean, there was that site I just showed you, there was a gorgeous, huge red cedar tree. I just so would have liked to have hugged it and picked it up and moved it, but it's gone now. So we get seedlings of trees when possible. And then you need to think about root systems. Like this photo here, this Polygala robusta, it was, like I say, it was from my waist to my boot. It was ridiculously long. So if you're going to commit to something like that, you need to know you're going to be digging a long root. Let's see. So the plants, where they go, they are eventually rehomed at sites. Right now, we've been taking them to Oakland Nature Preserve, the St. John River Water Management District's Lake Apopka property, which that's where this is at. They have a nice sandhill area there. And then also Lake Louisa State Park, which is here in Claremont, where I live. And then plant salvage projects have been conducted by other chapters throughout the state for years. So the way it works is you have to get the local chapters usually work to get those permissions and then organize the projects, you know, scheduling, okay, gang, what day do we go out, et cetera, working with the land managers at the recipient sites. So like Oakland Nature Preserve, for example, Lake Apopka, we're talking about scheduling when they can get in the ground. Do you have a site to hold them before they get in the ground, that sort of thing. But I also at this point want to point out that don't think you can go out there as an FNPS volunteer and just grab a shovel and go along the road and start digging somewhere. To do it right, you need those permissions and the documentation. And then I also want to take a minute to thank the landowners and developers who do allow us to remove plants, because there's no law that requires them to protect these endangered native plants on private property. So when they do allow us to get on those sites with our shovels, with our bags to collect seeds, we do appreciate it. So, you know, they don't have to do it, and they do. So in addition, I want to call out volunteers. So here we've got some regulars who are out there. This was this winter. It was a rainy day. We'd been told this site was the imminent status was very imminent. So we were out there on a very rainy morning, and that's a bag of deer moss there and our pots. And then also, this is a hot, sweaty day last summer, where we've got some more of the volunteers who are out there. And so I really, time-wise, I feel like I should wrap this up, because it is almost 1. So I will just end with this quote, which I think kind of nails it, why we're doing this. And also to say, if you're interested in learning more about rescuing plants, if you'd like to join us here in Central Florida, Valerie will have her email up for people to contact. And then, of course, you know, at the end, if you have any questions, let us know. So thanks for your time. I'll wrap up.
Well, thank you, Laura. Hey, Kate, you're muted again.
I said, I think I know what I'm doing, so let me go ahead and put this up.
Let's give it another go. Kate is the co-conservation chair along with Melissa Lammers for the Pawpaw Chapter of the Florida Native Plant Society, which serves Volusia County and parts of Flagler and surrounding areas. So,
okay.
go ahead, Kate.
All right. Oh gosh. Wait a minute. Oh.
Okay, so do you see us in Zoom?
I see you.
Okay, and then in the bottom, there's the green share screen button.
Yes, but I have to get. Let me just try this.
No, it's okay if you share screen first and then go to the PowerPoint.
It's not okay on my machine. I tried that before. Hold on a second. Let me try this one more time. I'm very sorry, everybody. I have a presentation and I'm not sure what's going on. Let's see. Let me try this again. Now it wants me to shut my machine down. I'm sorry. I have this whole presentation. I'm really frustrated. What can I do here?
Well, how about we can walk into questions and see if people have questions for, Laura on the plant rescues or on the legislative session. And then just a reminder, I know people have said they want to ask questions, but they don't want to have a Google account and be logged in. That's okay. You can email me questions or text me or email them or text me. So you don't have to have a Google account to participate. Carly?
Yeah, so I've got a question about the plant rescue. So, one of our things that we are wanting to do, potentially is work with our growth management department and have some sort of seed banking scenario. I was just curious, have you guys done seed banking yet?
Well, that's a very timely question because we're actually talking about working toward that. We're not there yet. We collect the seeds and try to get them out in their new homes sooner than later. But as we're losing property, the thought of collecting the seeds is because it's obviously quicker than digging up plants. Our little group is going to be talking more about that in the very actually next week we have a meeting where we're going to be talking about that aspect of it. So I can't answer you right now, but feel free to follow up.
I was just saying, would you mind putting your email maybe in the chat? Because I don't know if that meeting would be open for me to attend, but I would definitely like to listen in on what your group is discussing.
Yeah, the meeting is just a private meeting with our little group in person. We're not recording it or anything, but yeah, I could give you my email.
You guys should all be on the email that I sent you guys for the organizational meeting.
You're right. We are.
Yeah, so you guys can
get point.
Yeah, so Carly, you got my contact. Yeah.
So that's Laura Bennett-Kimble.
Yeah.
Yes, Kate.
Yeah, I have a question. This is for Merelee. How did you guys find out about the NCIS conservation grants?
I'd have to ask Marlene to be sure, but one of the great things about Marlene is that she just knows everybody. And especially in Southwest Florida, who has anything to do with native plants, conservation, environmental protection. So I wouldn't be surprised if she contacted them and asked them to come and see the site. That would be my guess.
Okay, that's terrific. Thank you.
Laura, Susie Knapp says, when is the next rescue and what do we bring?
Yeah, I just saw that. We're still typically doing Thursday mornings, so I'll have to reach out to Susie directly to get the info, because we won't be doing it next week, but the following we should be out there again in Claremont. So so Susie, yeah, we need to connect so that we can plan that.
All right, that's all the questions in the chat. It's so nice to have like all the well, not all the conservation people, but a good chunk of the conservation people from a couple of chapters together. Because like since the conference, we haven't had a lot of like in-person networking, you know, meet people, ask questions. Hey, I know who to ask about plant rescues. You know, there's like this several year post-COVID vacuum of, you know, networking between chapter members who are kind of doing the same thing. So I'm like really happy that John has been working so hard on the conservation committee, and that's like really going ham again. I used that phrase the other day. I'm like, I'm not really sure if it's actually a phrase.
What was that?
Going ham. I just made it up. Okay, good. Yay. Great. So happy for me.
It's a new one for me.
Well, it's just really great to hear a lot of these ideas. I mean, you know, you guys can do it. We can probably do it. I mean, we've got a lot on our plate, and I'm really sorry I couldn't. I think I know what happened. My machine updated the other day, so sometimes you have to go in and do all the resets. And so,
well, how about we get you on? I try and do these regularly, so I was doing them quarterly. I think quarterly is a bit often, but at least twice a year. So I'm thinking the next one, you know, July-ish, August-ish, and then there should be a lot of, you know, chapter conservation news, statewide conservation news to bring to the fore. Oh, I didn't even mention it, but we're going to do another Dice Randra Day this year.
Yay!
Yay! So if you missed the last one, we're going to be doing, you know, Dice Randra focused work day. Get mint smelly on your shoes, pull some weeds, and then, you know, series of great presentations, maybe a food truck. I don't know. We will make it good.
What a shame. It sounds wonderful.
What? What do you mean, what a shame?
No, I'm being facetious. I have a more sense of humor that is weird sometimes, but that sounds great.
Cool. And Laura, I was sort of hoping to hear your essay reading today.
Well, I thought I had it ready, but I didn't want to take the time to do it if we didn't have time. Are you saying you'd like me to read it?
I would like you to read it.
Okay. All right, guys. Okay. So this is a little different than a typical presentation, but I shared this when I presented plant rescue information to the Passion Flower chapter here in Claremont. They asked me to offer a program. So one of the things I did was share a little bit about rescuing from a more personal aspect, because I write. And so people ask about the experience. And so I was like, okay, well, here's mine. So while I read, so you don't have to look at me reading, I am going to start a photo loop. All right, let me share my screen again. All right, so put that. Okay. Oh, for crying out loud. Hang on.
You can do it, Laura.
I know. I'm like,
You just did it.
yeah, I know. Why? Come on, Zoom. Okay, now there we go. It was minimized. Share screen, photo loop. So these are photos that I have taken over the years of rescuing plants. So you can look at these while I read. Okay, here we go. We stood together, our dirty clothes sticking to our skin from sweat, and ate watermelon in the partial shade of a tall SUV. Exhausted in the humid 90+ degree weather, the 5 of us had spent about 3 hours digging and potting up native plants and then carrying them to our cars. The sandhill ecosystem was soon to be destroyed for a housing development, and everything from the skittish snakes to the butterflies, bobcats, and tortoises would be displaced or killed by the heavy equipment. We were rescuing as much as we could, then transplanting them to a nearby state park and local nature preserves. We had trekked deep into the property, burdened with our jugs of water, our empty pots, our shovels. We wore sunscreen, broad-brimmed hats, and long-sleeve shirts, our long pants and socks tucked into our shoes to protect us from ticks and ants. And we hauled out pots and pots of plants, weighted with the sandy soil we had moistened to aid the plants in their journey to a new home. Our volunteer group varied in size each week, with more than a dozen people helping one session, sometimes just 2 the next. We were gardening enthusiasts, nature lovers, retired science professionals, educators, and environmentalists. Week after week, month after month, our crew had been digging holes in the site's soil, choosing which individual plants to rescue, which DNA we hope to preserve. Leaders stressed seeking out the rare and endemic species, those only found in this part of the country. But ultimately, if a native plant was not of a species that easily propagates, not often seen along roadsides and other rural areas, it was fair game. On this hot summer day, the cold, sticky sweet watermelon had perked us up a bit. Rather than pile into our separate vehicles and crank up the air conditioning as we drove off, which we usually did, we stood for a while and talked as the sounds of nearby construction, the beep, beep, beep of vehicles backing up, the rat-a-tat of roofing nail guns, the roar of engines punctuated our words. Rescuing plants can be such hard work, physically and emotionally. Some people get disheartened and they can't do it anymore. Ultimately, for me, I can't not do this. When I visit the rescued plants in their new homes, in area parks and preserves, months or even years later, and see a native solitary bee getting nectar from a native plant that I put there, I feel like it matters. It matters for this plant, for this pollinator. I can't control the big picture, and the future honestly scares the heck out of me. But I can do something in my own little bubble now. I can save a native plant that should be allowed to live, and I can let it serve its purpose in the ecosystem now. According to entomologist and author Douglas Tallamy, humans cannot live as the only species on this planet because it is other species that create the ecosystem services essential to us. Every time we force a species to extinction, we are encouraging our own demise. It's hard for me to admit to something as grandiose as trying to slow species extinction, but that is exactly what we're doing, one pot of plants at a time. There.
Wonderful.
So there you go. Thanks.
Thanks, Laura.
Thanks for letting me share that, Val.
Important. Just real quick, Susie has a couple of things. Can you touch on native nurseries as help post-care sites?
Yeah, there's in the past we've used Green Isle Gardens Nursery, which is located in Groveland, as a staging area for plants where we would they would care for them. We dig the plants, put them there, and then let them harden off for a couple of months, and then get them in the ground at their ultimate home sites. And so that's something that native nurseries can help with, and they can facilitate. Just they can offer a lot of services. The Green Isle folks have actually come out with their trailer. They've helped us move the plants. You can have really good working relationships with some of these native nurseries, and you've got knowledgeable staff who can help identify plants if you're puzzling over them. And so there's a lot of value in what they can offer.
Yeah, and Susie is also asking for a split oak update, which I would love to give because I'm very knowledgeable on this particular issue, but it's kind of long and convoluted. Just to say, real quick, Osceola County sued Orange County to prevent Orange County voters from voting to protect the forest. The emergency injunction was not granted in 2020, back when the lawsuit occurred, when Osceola County sued Orange County. And so that lawsuit is nearing completion now. We are interveners, which means we have like pom-poms we can cheer from the sidelines and like write things. And so the judge, we had a hearing, it was long. If you would like to hear some excerpts from Osceola County's writings about how, conservation easements are indefensible and, one should be allowed to one is mandated by Florida statute to negotiate roads through conservation easements. So if you're interested in that, I did some daily readings from there on TikTok and our Facebook page, Instagram. So if you're going to Friends of Split Oak, you can have a look at the very entertaining language in that lawsuit. And the judge said that she was going to rule forthwith about a month and a half ago. So not that I had heard the word forthwith used in a sentence since I'm an adult. So I had to look it up to make sure that I knew what she was saying. And in fact, she did not rule forthwith. And then about a week and a half ago, emailed all of us and was like, hey, would your lawyers write this intervention? Because like either she can make a ruling, beep, and she has to write it out and then submit it, or she can tell the opposing sides to write their things. She just picks from it. And so that's what she did. And so we, pay the lawyer writes the thing, submit the thing. So we're waiting on that ruling still, which could invalidate the Orange County Charter Amendment protecting Split Oak. So not great. This is not a good situation. I mean, the whole Split Oak situation is not a good situation, but it's just sort of continually bad situations. And that's where we are.
Ugh.
And for anyone who's not familiar, Split Oak is really important because it is one of the most protected conservation areas in the state, with conservation easements, gopher tortoise mitigation. Gopher tortoise is relocated there from development elsewhere. Gopher tortoise incidental take permit money was used to pay for Split Oak, in addition to mitigation banking and protection because it was used as state funding was used to protect it through the Florida Forever and the pre-Florida P2000 program through the Florida Communities Trust. And so there are a number of documents. And so sort of the impetus is if these protections can be unwound for a toll road to a new development, then that makes all the other conservation areas that are less protected more vulnerable to similar threats in the future.
It sets precedent, and those are really hard to roll back once.
Exactly.
And we're facing the same thing. Pawpaw's not directly involved, but we have an interchange that is being proposed that is between two other interchanges that are only 4 miles apart. And it would be on an outstanding Florida water. This is the Pioneer Trail Exchange. and it has been fought successfully in court for about the last year. And then it went to St. John's, and St. John's did what may be considered an illegal action. We're just not sure. But basically, they had staff give the approval for the permit, which I understand was something that is allowed after Rick Scott came in as governor. So I'm not sure how all this is going to wind out, but it's a beautiful area with a lot of sandhills and mounds and, you know, just gorgeous hammocks along Spruce Creek, and it's in danger of being destroyed. Very unfortunate. So
Yeah, so thanks to, lots of Pawpaw Chapter members for getting involved in that issue. I know it's not a specifically chapter project, but
yeah, because we're not really allowed to get fully involved in it, but we can assist with the, the background stuff.
Yeah, we don't want to have to be rescuing plants everywhere. We need to be preserving these sites so people like me don't need to show up with our shovels. That's so important. So I appreciate all of you who are doing what you are for the protection of those sites. It needs to be done.
It's really difficult to go against the powers that be, especially when something is considered a done deal.
Yeah.
There's you gotta fight because there's a chance you may win.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this particular problem is called protected area downgrading and degazettement. And it's subject of, research by researchers who are working on conservation land protection. And it occurs in places that have poorer governance, that have lower quality of democracies. And so we're seeing that a lot in places in the United States who are not as responsive to citizen needs and the public's best interest. And this is occurring less in places that are more well governed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's really unfortunate to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right, well, on that really bright note, guys,
yes,
let's get out there.
Puts the hustle back in spring for everybody.
Put a spring in our step, yeah.
All right, okay, so just bringing it back around to the Conservation Committee, right? The deadline just ended, we awarded the grants, but if you are thinking, if you're an undergraduate student or gonna go be an undergraduate student, please go look up our Ethnobotany Award. We haven't had an applicant for a while, it'll be really great. We've had, people who are now past chapter presidents who have, done their research based on that award. So it's a really great award. And then also, if you're not in school, we have our conservation grants, which do happen to be pretty competitive, but hopefully we can expand them to have more awards in the coming years. So please look at those criteria and plan for applying next year. All right. Thank you guys so much. Great conservation work here under the committee and then also in your local chapters. I hope that we can all get together and network better in person, and at least in 2025, if not before. Yeah. All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Valerie.
Yeah.
Thank you, Val.